Point 1. Living with a mom who's a monster. Living with a familial monster is a phrase that sums up the terrifying experiences of the Knotek sisters. This phrase refers to their life with their mother, Shelly Knotek, who was a real-life monster due to her violent and murderous behavior. Shelly Knotek's childhood was far from perfect. She grew up in a home where her violent tendencies were not only overlooked, but also unintentionally encouraged. Her parents, particularly her dad, gave in to her every demand, which only added fuel to her destructive behavior. It's like feeding a fire. The more you feed it, the bigger and more destructive it becomes. In Shelly's case, her parents' indulgence didn't lessen her violent tendencies, but instead made them worse. As Shelly got older, her violent behavior got worse. It wasn't enough for her to torment her own family. She wanted more. This desire led her down a dark road that ended in murder. This progression from violent behavior to murder is a chilling reminder of how unchecked negative behavior can escalate to unthinkable levels. Despite their horrific upbringing, the Knotek sisters managed to create a meaningful life for themselves. Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of sisterhood. They managed to rise from the ashes of their traumatic childhood, much like a phoenix rising from its ashes, symbolizing rebirth and resilience. Understanding the Knotek sisters' story can provide valuable insights into how to identify and deal with narcissistic behavior in people. It serves as a stark reminder of the importance of recognizing and addressing signs of violent behavior early on. If left unchecked, these tendencies can escalate and potentially lead to tragic outcomes, as was the case with Shelly Knotek. In conclusion, living with a familial monster is a phrase that sums up the Knotek sisters' traumatic experiences with their mother, Shelly Knotek. Their story serves as a warning about the dangers of unchecked violent tendencies and the importance of early intervention. Despite their terrifying experiences, the sisters' resilience and unbreakable bond serve as a beacon of hope and a testament to the power of sisterhood. Point 2. Shelly Knotek's dark childhood journey. Not long after Les Watson and Laura Watson said their I do's and began their married life, they got a surprise phone call. It was from Sharon, Les's ex-wife, known for her rough and tough attitude. She was calling to ask when Les would be picking up his kids. This was a shock to Laura. She knew Les had kids, but she didn't know they'd be raising them. After a bit of back and forth, the Watsons agreed to take in Shelly and Chuck, Les's kids from his previous marriage. Sharon, however, decided to keep the youngest, Paul, thinking he was too little to be given away. So, 6-year-old Shelly and 3-year-old Chuck moved in with their dad and Laura, their new stepmom. As time went on, Laura started to see some worrying signs in Shelly, despite all the love and care she and Les gave her. Chuck was usually quiet and didn't cause much trouble. But when he did talk, it was often to repeat things Shelly had told him to say. Shelly was a different story. She was a real handful, always up to no good. Laura later realized that Shelly's self-centered behavior ran in the family. Anna, Shelly's grandma on her dad's side, was known for acting the same way. She was a woman who ruled with an iron fist and always got what she wanted, often by being manipulative and mean. It was clear that Shelly had a natural tendency to be self-centered, and her visits with her grandma probably encouraged this behavior. Looking back, Laura remembered that Anna and Shelly got along surprisingly well, which was unusual for people who dealt with Anna. They both seemed to enjoy making others uncomfortable. This gives us a peek into the not-so-sweet beginnings of Shelly Knotek, hinting at the dark road she would later walk down. Point 3. Shelly's transformation from normal to nightmare. In the tale we're discussing, there's a character named Shelly who starts off as sweet as pie. But don't be fooled. She's like an egg that looks harmless on the outside, but inside there's a mean old reptile waiting to break out. At first, Shelly's just a regular girl, like any other. But then she goes and accuses her dad, Les, of something awful. She says he hurt her in a way no father should. Turns out, she was lying, but the damage was done. Her family and school couldn't look at her the same way again. Even after all that, her dad still treats her like a princess. It's like he's feeding that nasty reptile inside her, making it bigger and meaner every day. Shelly gets sent to live with different family members, but wherever she goes, trouble follows. The real kicker comes when she messes with her Aunt Katie's marriage. That's when you know the sweet little girl is gone for good. In her place, there's this cold, calculating creature ready to strike at anyone who crosses her path. So when you think about Shelly, remember that egg. It might look harmless, but inside, there's a reptile waiting to break free. It's a chilling reminder of how someone can seem innocent, but underneath, they're anything but. Point 4. The first guy who fell for Shelly's charm. In the small town of Battleground, Shelly, a striking beauty with a fiery temper, found herself drawn to Rivardo, her first love. Her father, Les, ran a nursing home and was in desperate need of a helping hand. Seeing an opportunity, Shelly convinced Rivardo to move to Battleground, promising him a job with her father. Les, eager to see his daughter settled, offered Rivardo a handsome package and even footed the bill for their wedding in February 1973. Fast forward to February 1975, Shelly and Rivardo welcomed their first child, a baby girl named Nikki. Shelly, inexperienced and overwhelmed, moved back in with her parents, Les and Laura, for what was supposed to be a short stay. But days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Eventually, Rivardo put his foot down and insisted that they return to their own home. Back in Battleground, their relationship took a turn for the worse. Shelly's temper flared more often, and Rivardo found himself sleeping in their car just to escape her wrath. He confided in Laura, lamenting, "Shelly only treats me well when we have company." Shelly, always concerned about money, even convinced her father to send Rivardo's paycheck directly to her, effectively trapping him in their marriage. Despite his deep love for Nikki, Rivardo reached his limit. He decided to take a break and visit his family. They tried to patch things up, but their peace was short-lived. Rivardo filed for divorce, and in retaliation, Shelly took off with his money, left Nikki with Laura, changed her phone number, and vanished without a word. A year later, Shelly reappeared, claiming Nikki, but offering no explanation for her disappearance. She spun a tale for Nikki, painting Rivardo as the villain who abandoned them. It was only years later that Nikki discovered the truth, that her father had tried to reach out to her countless times. This tale is a stark reminder of Shelly's manipulative ways and the stormy relationship she shared with her first husband, Rivardo. Point 5. When Shelly's abuse turned criminal. In Gregg Olsen's chilling tale, we follow the life of Shelly, a woman whose adult years are marked by a slow but steady descent into crime. This isn't a sudden plunge into the dark side, but a gradual slide that's deeply entwined with her personal life and relationships. Shelly's journey into the criminal world starts with her marriage to Dave Knotek. Dave is initially painted as a gentle, kind-hearted man, but he soon falls prey to Shelly's manipulative ways. Shelly wears the pants in their relationship, and Dave, ever the submissive partner, accepts her behavior. This is clear in the love notes he pens for her. These notes, brimming with declarations of love and loyalty, seem to be more about Dave's hopes than a reflection of a balanced, loving relationship. Their family grows with the birth of their daughter, Tori, and the addition of 2 more people to their home, Kathy Lorino, a friend of Shelly's who's hit a rough patch, and Shane Watson, Shelly's troubled teenage nephew. But instead of offering a supportive home, Shelly subjects Kathy and Shane to brutal physical and emotional torment. The abuse gets so bad that Kathy's health takes a nosedive after a home accident orchestrated by Shelly. Kathy's death is a game-changer in Shelly's life, as she moves from being an abuser to a killer. To hide her crime, Shelly, with Dave and Shane's help, burns Kathy's body and wipes out any trace of her ever living with them. She then spins a tale that Kathy had run off and forces everyone to stick to this lie. This story gives us a bone-chilling peek into the mind of someone with narcissistic personality disorder. This is a mental condition that's recognized by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It affects about 0.5 to 1% of people and is marked by a lack of empathy, a craving for admiration, and a sense of superiority. Shelly's actions and behavior throughout the story are a clear sign of this disorder, serving as a stark warning of the potential dangers of unchecked narcissism. Point 6. Shelly's knack for hiding her true self. The phrase narcissistic camouflage of a social outlier might sound a bit complex, but it's actually a pretty straightforward concept when you break it down. Let's start with narcissistic camouflage. This is a fancy way of saying that someone is really good at hiding their true colors. In our story, this person is Shelly Knotek, a mother who's got manipulation down to an art form. She's a pro at using charm, lies, and emotional mind games to control and hurt the people around her. Next up, we have social outlier. This is just a term for someone who doesn't quite fit the mold of what society expects. In this case, we're talking about Kathy Lorino and Ron Woodworth. Both of them were in a tough spot, dealing with money troubles, and they turned to the Knoteks for help. But instead of getting the support they needed, they ended up being victims of Shelly's cruelty. So, when we say narcissistic camouflage of a social outlier, we're talking about how Shelly used her manipulative skills to control and hurt Kathy and Ron. She put on a show, acting like a caring, supportive friend, but her real intentions were anything but kind. For instance, when Kathy moved in with the Knoteks, Shelly seemed like a good friend at first, but as time went on, she started to control and hurt Kathy, both physically and emotionally. The same thing happened to Ron when he turned to the Knoteks for help. Shelly's daughter, Sami, saw the same patterns of cruelty towards Ron that she'd seen with Kathy. Despite all this, Shelly managed to keep up her act, pretending to be a caring, supportive figure. This is a classic example of how a narcissist can control and manipulate others, especially those who are vulnerable or on the fringes of society. So, to sum it all up, narcissistic camouflage of a social outlier is all about how Shelly Knotek used her manipulative tactics to control and hurt vulnerable people like Kathy Lorino and Ron Woodworth, all while hiding her true nature and intentions. Point 7. How Shelly and her husband got busted. The day after Sami's parents were hauled off by the cops, she tried to keep things normal. She celebrated her 25th birthday with her boyfriend, Kaylee Hansen. They went out for a steak dinner, trying to forget that her folks were now the talk of the town, their faces splashed all over the news. But the reality of it all was too much for Sami, and they decided to head home. On the drive back, her phone rang. It was her sister, Laura. She had some news. Their dad, Dave, had confessed to killing Shane. This was a dark secret that had been hanging over their family for years. Hearing this, Sammy's hopes of escaping her family's past and finding happiness were shattered. She had to face the grim truth of what her parents had done. But Dave's confession wasn't a full admission. He only said, "Shane's in the ocean," hinting that he dumped Shane's body in the sea. He also spun a tale about finding Shane messing with a rifle in the Pole building, a large, usually rectangular building used for storage or as a workshop. According to Dave, a struggle over the gun ended with him accidentally shooting Shane. He claimed he showed Shelly, Sammy's mom, what had happened, but they were both too scared to go to the cops. Even with his half-baked confession, Dave was found guilty of the murders. Oddly enough, he got a shorter sentence than Shelly, who was slapped with a 22-year prison term. After the dust settled, Sammy was given custody of her youngest sister, Tori. Despite all the horror they'd been through, the three sisters stuck together, proving their bond was unbreakable. This was a turning point for the sisters. Their nightmare was finally over, and they could start healing and rebuilding their lives. It was a powerful reminder of the strength of truth, justice, and family ties. Point 8. Conclusion. The power of sisterhood and familial bonds can overcome even the darkest of circumstances. In the face of unimaginable horror and abuse, the strength to endure and ultimately expose the truth can emerge. It is a testament to the human spirit's resilience and the power of truth. The journey to justice is often long and fraught with obstacles, but it is a journey worth undertaking. It is crucial to remember that silence can be as damaging as the act of violence itself. Speaking out against injustice, no matter how close to home, is not just a brave act, but a necessary one. The story also highlights the importance of community support and intervention in situations of domestic abuse. It is a call to action for society to be more vigilant and responsive to signs of abuse and violence within families. In the end, the unbreakable bond of sisterhood triumphs, proving that love and unity can conquer fear and oppression. It is a story of survival, resilience, and the power of truth.